Hello and welcome to this interview with Christien Bok from SURF in the Netherlands, an organization that has been extremely active and vocal in articulating policies and values and doing many other things for the digital transformation of universities in the Netherlands and beyond. So, Christien, let's jump into it. Can you talk a little bit about yourself and a little bit about what SURF is and what you do?
Yes, thank you, Thomas. I'm working as an innovation manager for education at SURF. And as you mentioned, SURF is a collaboration organization for education and research in the Netherlands. And we work together with our members, universities of applied sciences and vocational education in the Netherlands, on using IT innovations to improve the quality of education and research. And we do so for more than 50 years now. We have over 100 members. And we do different things, and we have different roles at SURF. So first, we are a place where our members can come together to exchange ideas, to get to know each other, to come up with plans that they want to collaborate on. So that's one very important role. The other role is that we are a service provider. So, for example, we provide the network for our members, but also the high-performance computing, other services, and we also do procurement and contracting for our members. And the third role that we have is that we are an innovation place. So we look far ahead and we see the trends that may have an impact on education and research. And we want to prepare ourselves, but we also want to shape the transformation. So that's the reason why we really want to have insight in what's happening, understand what's going on, and in the national context, but also in the international context. So that's in short what our organization is about. We work with about 400 people at SURF. We have 2 offices in Utrecht and in Amsterdam. And well, it's a great place to be. I'm happy for 16 years already that I can work here.
I think what is maybe one of the interesting thing you do is what you mentioned, looking ahead and shaping policies. And I was personally very impressed about the value compass that you have. So you develop this, let's say, a preliminary template or map for values in the digital transformation. And that is, I think, there's consensus that this is really a core issue. So can you tell about that, how you developed it and what it contains?
Yes, I think that values, public values, are the main reason why SURF was established over 50 years ago. So that there's this deep understanding of that it's important to protect certain aspects of the public space, and not to have only commercial solutions when it comes to digitization. So that's, for example, the reason why we have a public network for education and research, why we have a public high-performance computing, etc. So, so this is really in the genes of our organization, but it wasn't really articulated. And of course, the developments of the last years of the rise of the power of big tech organizations, that gave reason for us to rethink the public values. And when we start talking about values, it's really easy, especially when you work in the public sector, to say, yeah, we agree that values are important. But when it comes to digitization and you talk about values, my experience was that mostly people are talking about, oh yes, that's about privacy and that's about security. If that was it when it comes to public values. And I had this feeling that it was much broader than that. And I really had this, I felt the need to find a vocabulary to have the discussion about what it means for us, because when it comes to public values, it's easy to agree on them, but it's not so easy to bring them in practice. And one of the reasons is that it's difficult to find agreements on this is what we want as a sector. That's the first thing. But it's also because you have this different relationships between the public sector and the commercial sector. So there are a lot of things to consider. So I thought it would be really important to have a vocabulary to have the discussion, at least in the sector, what do we mean when it comes to public values? So that was the main reason to start this value compass. We did this together with our colleagues from Kennisnet. That's a Dutch organization working for primary and vocational education. And we started thinking, so what are these values then for us? And we read a lot of other value compasses from other sectors and a lot of literature. We had a lot of conversations. And finally, we came up for values for education with autonomy, justice, and humanity. And we try to specify these three values into other values that that really represent these values. So, for example, when it comes to justice, that's about inclusivity and about equity and about integrity. So we are trying to explain, so what do we mean with it? And to give a richer and broader view on public values than only the, security and privacy reaction that usually came. So that's the background of the value compass.
Yeah, that is, I think, a very big step that you took there to really articulate these things. Can you talk a little bit more, because what is very interesting in these discussions is the relation between the universities, let's say the public in general, and the private providers, because as I understand it, this is not sort of an anti-big tech drive. You're, let's say, almost beyond that. Can you just go into detail about that?
Yeah, well, maybe it's nice to tell a little bit what we did after we published the Value Compass, because we thought we should create awareness about these values and also try to understand ourselves, what does it mean for education and also so what do we need to do then? So what we did was we organized a series of seminars for board members of universities. And we built a program where we discussed the different values and different aspects on it. And we discussed them with representatives from public and from commercial parties. To see are there differences in the views on values, because, well, you can say public values is only for the public domain, but of course, you know, we are all citizens and we all have this feeling about autonomy, justice, and humanity. So even commercial parties, of course, think about values. And the interesting thing, what we discovered, I think, was that when did we articulate what was really important for us? So can we really only blame commercial parties for not meeting our standards if we are not clear in articulating them? So we had some really interesting conversations with, for example, publishers, but also big tech parties. We would like to meet your standards and your criteria, but you really have to be clear on that. And of course, that's really difficult. When you talk about the Netherlands higher education, I told you we have 100 members. So it's really a difficult task to come to an agreement with the 100 members. So let alone when you have to do this on a European level or even broader. But still, I think I'm really positive about it, because I think we have some great examples that we can do it. I think one of the most clear examples is the GDPR, where Europe says this is what we want when it comes to privacy, right? So we have proven that we can do it. And I think in this discussion, coming back to your questions, this is not anti-commercial parties. I think we really need to have the conversation, but we have to be really clear in what we want and what we think is not acceptable. And I was really pleasantly surprised, maybe, in these conversations that at least these commercial parties said, well, for us, of course, it's also a benefit if we can meet your requirements because we want to have a good relationship with you. So, yeah. This is not only anti. Of course, it's really important that we come to an agreement. So what are these conditions that we want to set as a sector?
So would I be right in saying that this is about, understanding what you want, being very clear to your partners, and then also have clear rules? So it's sort of the rules-based way of looking at things.
Yes, and I think that also, okay, we cannot be naive, right? So if we have this path of agreements and conditions and be very strict about it, we also need alternatives, because we can come up with our brilliant set of agreements and then they say, well, I'm sorry, we're not going to meet them. So what then? So you need to have alternatives to be able to be really strict about what you want and what you don't want.
That's very clear, and it's a very interesting way of working. But maybe we could get a little bit more technical and see, okay, we have these values and we have this framework, but technically one of the things that I've noticed in the Dutch discussions is that there's this call for, as you say, alternatives, avoiding being locked into commercial relationships, and standards and interoperability are important elements of this, as I understand. So maybe you can talk a little bit about how you see that whole question of standards and interoperability.
Yeah, we really think that open standards are key in organizing an environment where you really can be sure that your public values are ensured. Because interoperability means that you avoid vendor lock-ins and that you are able to change when you want to go to another vendor. And what's happening right now is that these big tech companies are more aimed at intraoperability. So everything is running really smooth within their ecosystem, but it's not communicating with other ecosystems. So we think it's really important that we create an open environment that's open for all vendors, and that's communicate so that it is really easy to make other choices as soon as you want. And that means that we not adjust to the standards of commercial parties, but that commercial parties adjust to the standards that we set, and that it should be open standards. And I think that really opens up the market also for new tech parties, also for startups, for scale-ups. Then it will be much easier to enter this market and to ensure a level playing field.
It's also political in terms of this, I suppose, is something that cannot be done in one country alone. So maybe we scale up and talk about what is necessary on the European level.
Yeah, when it comes to standards, it's of course very interesting that it's not only a national thing or an international thing. I mean, if we would live in the same country, we could both develop a standard and say this is the standard. So at some point you have to agree a standard is only effective if it has a broad use. And when we are looking at the standardization landscape, I think not only in the Netherlands, but also in the international context, for example, Europe, I think what we need is some kind of coordination and governance, because there is a lot going on. There are a lot of organizations, projects, initiatives that really are aware that we need to organize interoperability. Is it in for a point solution? That can be, just for a bilateral collaboration, for example, between two universities. You also need to organize interoperability, or aimed at a more broad vision as this. We should use this in Europe. But because of the lack of coordination, all these initiatives, they just develop all kinds of solutions. But then what solutions will we pick? Because if there are 100 standards, it's not the solution to say, okay, I will develop the 101st standards and that will be these standards. So we really have to have a kind of mechanism to prevent that we spend so much money and use so much brain power and expertise on developing all these solutions, where I think there are only, so much problems that we need to solve, that it will be easier to unite our forces. Because if I'm honest, I think at the moment we have more solutions than problems in place.
Yeah, that's a good quote. So it's a governance. It's very much a governance issue. It's about, again, the dialogue and setting a framework.
Yeah, and I think that what's specific about education, that's and it's really important. It's one of our core values. It's the autonomy of education. So that's within the Netherlands. Our universities are really autonomous in the way they want to deliver their educational programs, and I think that's the best we can have. That's the one of the fundamentals of education, and that's the same in Europe. There will be no European legislation when it comes to education because of the autonomy of education, and I think that it's time to rethink autonomy of education, not when it comes to educational programs, not when it comes to pedagogy, because that is really something to protect. But I think it's time to rethink, are we really into autonomy of the organization of education? Can we maintain this autonomy of organization of education in this world where student mobility is rising, where we are collaborating more and more between universities? And I really think we should standardize the way we organize education in order to be able to maintain this autonomy of education. So I think we really need to rethink this discussion on autonomy of education and standardization, because when it comes to education, and you mentioned standardization, everybody says no, education, that should be not standardized at all, and I agree. But organization of education, enabling education, that's something really different.
Good. I think this is a very good ending point of our small talk, because it's so visionary, almost a boost of all the things we've talked about in the Bologna process and similar. And autonomy is, of course, a big thing. So, Christien, I want to say many thanks to you. It's been a pleasure. It's been a pleasure. Super interesting. And we're looking forward to learn more about SURF and hear more from SURF and your value compass, and take these discussions at the European level. So thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.